Stop smoking? You might as well ask me to stop reading.
Well, you have that wrong, Mr. Stopworth. To continue smoking is to stop breathing.
That's a very interesting play on words, Mr. Brooks. You men of the cloth sure have a way with words. How old do you think I
Oh, 42?
am? I'm 42. Look, I'm gonna confess something to you. I tipple, Mr. Brooks. I mean, I drink. I drink all the time. The thing is, I can't stop drinking. See? That's just the thing about me. I can't stop drinking. If you can understand that, you can also understand that my drinking is directly connected to my smoking. No, when I say directly, I mean there's a thing, a physical thing. The booze bone is connected to the smoke bone. And the smoke bone is connected to the head bone. And that's the word of the Lord.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, starfighters, chain smokers, and esteemed members of the Christopher Mott Society. This is Ruined Childhoods, and we are wrapping up America's I states on our cinematic road trip. On this episode, we are in the Hawkeye state, and the origins of that nickname are questionable. Some accounts say that it's for Chief Black Hawk and a man named Stephen Sumner Phelps, who was nicknamed Hawkeye. Others believe that it comes from James Fenimore Cooper's novel, The Last of the Mohicans, later repopularized by the Daniel Day-Lewis movie of the same name. And while we're talking about actors, the Hawkeye state is the birthplace of Tom Arnold, Cloris Leachman, and one of my favorite on-screen dirtbags, John Getz. And if you're dying to know what this state's bird is, it's none other than the eastern goldfinch. That's right, this week we are in Iowa. But more importantly, our movie of the week is 1971's Cold Turkey, directed by the late, great Norman Lear, who passed away December 5th, 2023. Dan, what's your favorite Norman Lear show?
All in the Family. I mean, there's a slight...
Hard agree.
Hard agree? Is that your favorite? Okay. Yeah, I mean, it took me a moment just to think... just briefly, because I had to run through the list in my head, because we have All in the Family, we have Maude, we have Sanford and Sons, One Day at a Time, The Jeffersons, Good Times, and a lot of these shows also like took place in the same, like Norman Lear invented the like cinematic universe, quote unquote, because it was all on TV. Right. I mean, I'm not gonna say he invented it, but he certainly was doing it long before we had like these, although I guess for a long time you had like crossovers between TV shows. Like I remember in the 80s, like Family Matters and Full House would cross over.
Well, also you would have the Gary Marshall televisual universe.
Yes.
Which is its kind of cousin, I guess.
And
the Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy world.
Yes, which were all connected. Yes. All kind of sprung from Happy Days. But anyway, Norman Lear, All in the Family is, yeah, I feel like that's the masterpiece. It's the, I mean, of course,
it's
Norman.
The prototype.
Yeah. And all of these shows were loaded with social commentary and were groundbreakers from, from shows like The Jeffersons and Maude, which I think featured the first like character to get an abortion on TV. I think Maude was played by B. Arthur, and of course, I think Maude was initially a character on All in the Family, or she was somehow connected.
Right.
So, because I remember seeing interplay between Archie Bunker and Maude. because how do you forget B. Arthur and Carol O'Connor having a back and forth? So
and Maud, who was modeled after Norman Lear's then wife Frances, who was a gold star feminist. She was the pioneer behind what was called Lear magazine, which was a feminist magazine. And so I feel like we have Norman Lear and Frances at the time Lear. I believe that she started going by a different name after that. She passed away. I believe she. Nope. Yes. No. She passed away in the 90s. And Frances Loeb. And so she was Maud, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And then apparently his Archie and Edith were very similar to his parents. And I always felt like I always saw a little bit of our grandparents in Archie and Edith.
On our father's side,
Mel and Charlotte,
we are brothers.
Yes,
yeah. I feel like our grandmother, resembled Jean Stapleton a little bit.
Well, she had I don't know, not in the respect of like where Edith was sometimes a couple of steps behind.
No, I just mean like physically, like visually. There was a similar vibe between the two,
and there was like the vibe exactly between the two of them. So that was always it was something that I think helped like connect me to those characters, and I knew that like no matter how much of a dick he was, like he really loved her, and they really had a love and like a true relationship. And I feel like some of that understanding was like based in like knowing our grandparents who were kind of that like similar,
Yeah, they were
one's a bit of a crank.
They had a rapport for sure between the two of them. That couldn't be denied. But there was love between the two, and both have since passed away. Our grandmother only just a little over a year ago, but our grandfather 20 years ago, something like
20,
that, maybe
20,
more,
almost 23 years ago.
Yeah, I was thinking is probably around 2001. Yeah. And I don't think that I ever really got to know him well enough to see much of an Archie Bunker-ness to him, aside from the fact that, he enjoyed sitting down. I don't know.
He enjoyed sitting down. I think he was also grew up in the Bronx. Or
sure.
Archie like I think grew up in Queens, but it's that same early 20th century New York like attitude and accent and he would say things like mind your P's and Q's. I heard him say that. Our grandfather, not say that. Archie Bunker, but
right.
I mean, I
feel like Archie Bunker would have Archie Bunker would have more colorful words to say.
I mean,
the same thing.
Our grandfather certainly had his version of some of the colorful language. There were certain Yiddish words that.
Sure, but you're not going to hear Archie Bunker say Yiddish words. Different demographic there.
Not knowingly though, Archie Bunker would be the type to use a Yiddish word that he didn't realize was a Yiddish word.
And had he known, he wouldn't have used it.
Right. And I'm sure it would be a plot point where he finds out from like Sammy Davis Jr. that he's using a Yiddish word. Yeah. Anyway, Norman Lear was a fucking genius.
Absolutely. We don't need to be the ones to eulogize the great Norman Lear. We actually decided to cover the movie Cold Turkey before he passed away, and it was days later. Yeah. After we recorded that, the news broke.
After we decided to record this, yeah.
Yeah,
after
and Dan, let me tell you, I am just refreshing the Google News page for Dick Van Dyke, just because just turned 98 years old a week ago.
John, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. And I mean, talk about another legend, Dick Van Dyke, just absolute television and film hero.
Oh, yeah.
Just one of the most delightful people to walk the planet ever. Constantly
dance the planet,
still singing and dancing and playing music and doing barbershop harmonies with people, and absolutely incredible track record there. And happy belated birthday by just a few days, Dick Van Dyke.
I mean,
98.
Somebody who really just seems to, and I don't profess to know much about him, but just from everything you can tell about him, this is a guy who really it takes advantage of everything he has and enjoys life to its fullest, and to like for as long as he can. So like, bless you, Dick Van Dyke, and may you keep on dancing.
Yes. And also, Gene Stapleton from All in the Family, also in our movie this week, who is just hilarious. And this movie, Cold Turkey, was a reason why All in the Family got greenlit. I think that Norman Lear was like pitching it around, and they like weren't solid on it. And then while he was making Cold Turkey, I don't know if the network saw a cut or something and just started to really rally behind him. And the success then of All in the Family just overshadowed the release of this film as being Norman Lear's, I mean, he had been around, and this was actually his only movie that he directed, but it certainly, Cold Turkey could have been the start of a long film career for him. But
right.
Because All in the Family took off the way that it did, this ended up just being his only film.
Well, and this didn't necessarily, I mean, it's arguable that, I mean, All in the Family might have, it wasn't successful. It didn't get great reviews. It got, mediocre.
It was ahead of its time.
It was very much ahead of its time. I watch it now and I see its echoes in so many of the other satirical films that I love that came after it, from films like Network, which comes, just 4 years later, to Spike Lee's Bamboozled and Jojo Rabbit. And like, I'm a fan of satire, and I really appreciate, I feel like taking the risks that Norman Lear does, and just like really not pulling the punches and not holding back and just being really blunt and obvious. I think you sacrifice something when you do that, but I admire that. I like that risk taking. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Don't hold back. Like, really, like, go for, like, one of the techniques of satire is exaggeration. And I'm like, yes, please go in that direction. And I really loved watching this movie. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's perfect. And, full disclosure, everybody, if any of my words sound slurred, it's the lower left-hand corner of my mouth is numb from some dental work earlier today. I'm expecting to regain feeling, possibly at some point during this recording.
You sound fine, Dan. You sound fine.
I do not feel. I'm like, I feel it, and I just wanted to.
Well, I'll let you take a quick break from talking, because I just want to reflect also on the lasting legacy and the mark that this could have left on, future creators. Notably, a co-star of All in the Family, Rob Reiner, who, of course, has just become like this complete juggernaut in all genres of film, really, comedy, horror, you name it, and fantasy, everything,
courtroom drama,
everything. Rob Reiner does it all. Castle Rock Entertainment, and I think that the influence that Norman Lear had on him is very present. I mean, it's not like it's not like Rob Reiner was in need of inspiration from an outside source, because he had his father, Carl Reiner.
Right.
And as I, learned in the new documentary about Albert Brooks that Carl Reiner made with him, that the two of them grew up together.
That
went to
Rob
school
Reiner
together.
made with him.
Rob Reiner made with him, correct. And that Carl Reiner on The Tonight Show even said that the funniest person that he's ever met was a young teenager named Albert, then Einstein.
Einstein, right.
Yeah. And so, Rob Reiner was just surrounded by brilliant people, of course, his father, Mel Brooks, everybody. Yeah. And, but Norman Lear also should be among those top names of influences on him. And of course, the influence I'm sure that Rob Reiner has had on other filmmakers. I mean, certainly, Rob Reiner and Albert Brooks both pioneering the mockumentary with Real Life and This Is Spinal Tap. Then, of course, going on and sprouting all of the other like Christopher Guest movies and, pop
TV
star,
shows, The Office,
TV, all mockumentaries, like they come from there. That's their genesis. It's amazing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And people just keep, kind of like, adding new twists to the genre. I love it.
Oh, yeah, no.
Thank you, mockumentarians. I support your work.
Oh, we salute you too. So why don't I give a little synopsis, because I don't think that this is one that most people would have seen. It came out in 1971, as you said, to little fanfare and poor critical reception. So you ready?
Let's go.
A smarmy marketing executive at a tobacco company has the idea to offer $25 million of the company's dollars to any town in the U.S. that's able to quit smoking for 1 month. This catches the attention of a struggling Iowa town's reverend and its council members, realizing how much of an impact that amount of money would make. The problem? The town of Eagle Rock, Iowa loves to smoke. That makes convincing them all to pledge a smoke-free month quite challenging, even bringing Reverend Clayton back to smoking himself. But once the town commits to ditching tobacco, it's a 30-day struggle to keep a clear mind and resist temptation, despite the marketing executive's constant efforts to get the citizens to light up. So Reverend Clayton Brooks is played by Dick Van Dyke. Bob Newhart is so good as Merwin Wren, who is the marketing executive. Oh, I also talk about television legends.
Yeah.
Bob Newhart. You don't even need to say anymore.
Yeah, you got a ton of them. Yeah, and you have another Newhart show regular in the cast, Tom Poston.
Right, Tom Poston, who is Edgar Stopworth. We've also got Bob and Ray, the comedy duo. Of course, Bob Elliott is Chris Elliott's father, and Bob and Ray had this. They were, they did a lot of like radio, comedy routines and everything. Mm-hmm. And the two of them were so perfectly utilized in this movie. They each of them played several different television newscasters, and all of their names were lampooning television newscasters of the time. I think that the most famous being their Walter Cronkite analog, Walter Cronick.
Yes.
Which was Ray Goulding. And I loved it. I thought that they also were, it didn't take you out of it when it was just like, oh, it's the same guy.
No,
but just doing a different character.
No, not at all. Because they're already playing like it's obvious parodies of these people. And I love one of my favorite moments in the film is the reveal of Walter Cronick in the hospital, in the operating room.
Oh yeah.
When they pull back the curtains and there's the light behind him that gives him a halo, because of course Walter Cronkite was like the most trusted man in America. That was like his nickname, the most trusted man in America. And like seeing him tributed and lampooned in one fell swoop, I think I'm like, why? How did this not play to more people? Anyway, I have other commentary on like the kind of humor of the film, but I'll get to it later because we're talking about this fantastic cast.
Yeah, and certainly there's more to add. Paul Benedict, who's the kind of person who you would recognize him if you saw him. He
from
shows
Waiting
up
for
as this
Guffman.
From Waiting for Guffman, but he's also just like for anybody else who's just a casual movie watcher, you'd be and be like, I know that guy. I've seen him before.
He was
Just
also
one of those guys.
He was also on, I want to say, the Jeffersons. I want to say he was a regular, I think, on the Jeffersons or on good. Yeah, on the Jeffersons.
Mm.
Oh, he was the number painter on Sesame Street.
Oh, there you go. See, people would probably recognize him from that. So another cast member that I, of course, want to shout out is Judith Lowry, who plays this woman named Odie, who is absolutely hilarious. She is, she's this elderly woman who seems to have just discovered the word bullshit and uses it liberally in all different ways.
Yes.
She's so fun. We have Bernard Hughes as Dr. Proctor, which I love that. Dr. Proctor is possibly the citizen of Eagle Rock who is the hardest to prevent from smoking, ironically.
Of course.
Yes. And because he claims that smoking calms his nerves when he's needing to perform surgery or something. Oh, so funny. The whole cast is absolutely hilarious. We mentioned Jean Stapleton. She's this woman who lives in the town and is quitting smoking and resorting to eating strange combinations of food as a result. And oh my God, she's so funny. And Dan, for anybody who listens to this podcast regularly within the past year would know how much I love the show Murder, She Wrote. I'm currently going through from the beginning. I'm in season 5 right now. Now, Dan, did you know that Jean Stapleton turned down the role of J.B. Fletcher?
No.
She did. She was offered the role that went to Angela Lansbury, but she didn't think that it was going to be good for her because she was coming off of another like long run on a television series.
Right.
And she wanted to have more liberty with like playing with the scripts and things like that. And it wasn't going to offer her those types of things. This is coming from an interview from her. And then, she goes on to say like, and Angela was just kind of like waiting. She had been on stage for such a long time. We, of course, know that she was in films such as Gaslight in the 40s and then Blue Hawaii in 61. And, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. And she really wanted to make a, big break on television. And Jean Stapleton goes on to say, and it's just like, and of course, she's perfect in that role.
Yeah.
And she totally kills it. And nobody is ever going to argue with Jean Stapleton's point there. So I thought that was a really funny little factoid about Jean Stapleton and Murder, She Wrote. But yeah, no, the entire cast of this movie is so good. Pippa Scott, who plays Dick Van Dyke's wife in the movie, is fantastic. She is constantly being talked over and not given opportunities to speak her mind. And when she does, she quotes scripture to the Reverend, and he goes like, "You're using my words against me." And she's like, "They're the Bible's words. They're God's words." It's so funny. She's so good, and she does such great like face acting. Yeah, because she's not given the opportunity to speak that much. So, her physical humor works so well in this.
Oh, absolutely agreed. It is she gives a great performance. You know who else I really enjoy in this? What's her name? Barbara Kaysen, I want to say is how you pronounce it. She plays Letitia Hornsby, who's like the town busybody, the Karen, if you will.
She's great. She's fantastic.
So funny. She made me think of Cloris Leachman. In fact, speaking of people from Iowa.
From Iowa, yeah.
Yeah. And did we talk about we did not talk about Vincent Gardenia yet as the mayor.
No, that's the mayor. Yeah, Mayor Quincy Wappler.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I feel like everybody's so funny in it. We have, when I started the show, we mentioned the Christopher Mott Society. That is a group in the town that essentially is just, they're like the libertarian group. They're like, they're just against regulations.
Well, they were like apparently a thinly veiled version of a very right wing,
Yeah.
like kind of like libertarian, but also like bordering on fascist. They're like all very conservative
Well,
and anti-communist.
yeah, so-
They're very McCarthy. Senator
and
McCarthy.
actually, yeah, and so they're actually anti-smoking, but they're against. Initially, they are against the idea of, you know, going for this money because it goes against all the things they believe in. But the Reverend convinces them to do it because the leader of the group could then they could be put in charge. They were kind of deputized as the enforcers, the non-smoking enforcers. And I forget the name of the guy who's in charge of the group, but
they're like
he's
the mini Gestapo.
Exactly. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, they do checks with all the cars. And Odie, the old woman, she's a member of the group, and she's I'd say the Mrs. Feldman, if we wanted to put it in Police Academy 4 terms, of the Christopher Mott Society. You know, she wants to pack heat. She just wants to get into the action.
That's a bullshit.
And,
You're a bullshit.
That's a bullshit. Yeah. So what's also peculiar about this is that we have Bob Newhart's character who goes around town with a cigarette. You know, it's a cigarette lighter that's shaped like a pistol, which is such an odd choice. I suppose it helps him get closer into people's faces.
And not by the way in the style, because I know what you're thinking. Inner Space, of course, the dream that Jack Potter has with the little the tiny little pistol. This is like it's got like a long,
it's very narrow
barrel.
It's like a long narrow barrel, yeah. But it is the same style of pistol that the head of the Christopher Mott Society holds, that of course leads to a kerfuffle at the end. And I really don't want to like spoil what happens in the movie, but it almost feels like I'm so desperate to talk about a few of the things that end up happening. I mean, okay, skip ahead a few minutes if you don't want to hear any spoilers. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So as they get down to the wire, when it's like just about to hit the 1 month mark, everybody's there. You know, the town has at this point become a carnival, essentially. It's a tourist attraction. And we have the heads of the tobacco company and everything, and that marketing guy, Merwin,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to get it to stop. And Merwin is just like, don't worry, I've got it. He's got somebody that's in like the clock tower who is setting the clock forward, but also has a helicopter that is going to release cigarettes, going to rain down cigarettes on everybody. And of course, they figure out like that's not the real time, and they kind of get into this whole brawl, and mayhem happens. But the point that I want to get to then is that once they achieve this goal, they are visited by none other than President Richard Nixon. And it's done in the most hilarious way. It's clearly somebody who's, you know, meant not to be very in focus and just covered. They're probably wearing a Nixon mask.
They are
like a
almost
rubber mask.
Definitely wearing a Nixon mask.
Yeah, but all you really see are like vaguely the top of the head, but the telltale, you know, waving arms in the air. And, you know, you just see all of the like, you know, Secret Service all around him and everything. And he makes an announcement by way of, was it a blimp? That's yeah, there's like
the
a
Goodyear
blimp that has like, it's the Goodyear blimp that's above them, and it has words saying that Eagle Rock is officially the site of the next like missile plant. And you know, of course, this just means, you know, money coming into the town, and, you know, businesses will, you know, thrive, and there will be people coming in and out, and, you know, more population and things like that. And, you know, we close the movie seeing the results of this, which are these 4 smokestacks that look like giant cigarettes pumping this black smoke into the air.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. It's a perfect ending.
It really is. I was joking, if this was like 10 years later, it would have been a nuclear power plant at the end.
Right.
And I really appreciated how the ending really just went for it. And I mean, just down to the shooting, it was much more than I expected. And in a good way. In a good way, because it would have been wrong for the film to let up at that point. Right. And having, but it also brings it full circle because the movie starts showing how the film, or how Eagle Rock was the site of was it an Air Force base? Or
Air Force base, yeah.
Yeah, an Air Force base that had been since shut down. And it played into, and of course, and it was shot in, I want to say 1969.
Correct.
And it was just kept to it was shelved, I think. Right. I think until All in the Family was successful, perhaps.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I think that would have, had it been released early, I think it would have done better. Especially because it would have come like hot on the heels of The Producers in 1968, which is similarly, no holds barred satire, it's taking on some really difficult subject matter. I thought that like bringing it full circle and saying like, all right, well, the government's going to put money into it again. It really showed, and it's like, oh, they're pouring the cigarettes and everything, and it's like, oh, things are just going to go like full circle. It's going to be a cycle.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I felt like there wasn't anything about it. And I know that you said that there are parts of it that maybe don't age well or that don't maybe feel right for the times now. And I'd like you to, go into that a little bit more. But for me personally, I watched it and I was like, this could work. You could replace cigarettes with something else. You could, you could make the power plant the missile factory something else. And the idea of a small town having to give something up for the greater good of the town, I think is a really awesome framework for a story. And because they had the right people in place, the right actors, and of course Norman Lear, it makes it all sing. Dick Van Dyke, who's so charismatic and fun, to have him as the Reverend, to have the entire supporting cast, including Bob Newhart, playing all to their strengths.
Right.
I feel like this movie just, when you think like, all right, well, how are they going to sustain the whole idea of they can't smoke for 30 days? How do you sustain that for a whole movie? And they find ways to do it. And they, they play with the structure of the town and how things become politicized. And because Reverend Brooks is a clergyman, there's the whole idea of faith and the reasons why you're doing things that go into it. And I really loved that was kind of how Dick Van Dyke was in there, because they could have easily just made him like the mayor or like a council member, and it wouldn't have had as much of an impact.
Well, and a couple of things not to be in terms of motivation are, first of all, his motivation to get a better assignment and move into a bigger, like Dearborn or something, where he wants to
something like that,
Michigan or something. I don't know.
That sounds somebody's heard of.
But also the pitch of the Bob Newhart character to this like old like tobacco company president who's going to die, and they're talking about legacy. And
played by Woodrow Parfrey.
Played by Edward Everett Horton.
Oh,
plays
I'm looking at a different tobacco executive.
Hiram Grayson. Yeah.
Okay, tobacco executives. We have Walter, Sandy, Woodrow Panfrey, and Hiram Grayson is played by Edward Everett Horton.
Yeah. And the whole the whole deal is like, this is what you'll be remembered for. Like, people don't remember that Alfred Nobel invented explosives and was responsible for like millions of deaths. They think of it because he took all that money and created the Nobel Peace Prize. So that's what his name is attached to. So like, think of it this way, like you could be like, hey, I recognize the dangers of smoking and I'm going to offer this to any town that can stop. Like, I'm going to encourage people to stop smoking, but also that it's a foregone conclusion that it's like, no, there's no town in America that could entirely give up smoking for 30 days.
You'll be remembered for making the offer, making the pledge.
Right.
And it's like,
trying to make things right.
Do this? Yeah. And also I feel like using that information about Nobel to manipulate or to kind of pitch this idea. I mean, first of all, I've worked in marketing and it's like, oh my God, if you put this framework in front of somebody else now at, Amazon or something, they'd do the same thing. Like they would absolutely fall for that, idea of just like, oh, instead of being known for unfair working conditions and, these centers where you find bottles of urine and stuff outside, you'll be remembered for this prize that you created and things like that. So good. I mean, tobacco is a perfect example because there's no benefits to it. There's nothing that does good for anybody but the people who are making money from it.
So what is it? Anyone who can like work or like deliver packages for like a month straight without taking, without taking more than like an hour break to sleep, gets like a paid retirement and like.
Yeah. Oh, is that the modern day equivalent? Is that what we're pitching now?
That was not where I was going to go, but yeah. I mean, I don't know if we're there yet. I want to also comment. I think part of the reason why they're able to sustain a movie about like the 30 days is because first they have the whole first act is before the month even starts. Which
getting
is
the pledges.
Which is great because it also introduces you to the characters and sets it up for like, when they stop smoking, what's going to happen? Because yes, when one stops smoking, especially when one quits cold turkey, you're chemically changing your body and your emotions are going to react.
And also, you gave a shout out before to Tom Poston, who's Edgar Stopworth. So his character is somebody he's such a big time drunk who gives this amazing performance. This one scene where he's saying like, I can't not smoke when I drink. It's just not possible. So the solution is for him to just leave town for a month.
Which I love. I love it because it cuts off the question of like, well, why doesn't anyone just leave?
Yeah, that guy does. And of course, when he comes back, he's, part of the kerfuffle at the end of the 30 days. And it's so good because then you see him again and you're just like, oh yeah, that guy. I'm so happy to see that guy again. Oh no, he's there. It's going to be bad.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely fantastic. And one of the things that this movie also needs to be remembered by is the fact that it is quite possibly the first ever on-screen fart in cinematic history.
Yes.
It's frequently attributed to Blazing Saddles, but that's a few years later. And this is, it's just like the first fart joke, maybe.
You're right.
But,
it's Edward Everett Horton, who I doubt actually supplied the fart, but who died right before the film came out.
But did he really?
Yeah.
Well, then he had no opportunity to deny it, in which case he would have supplied it.
We'll never know.
But it also wasn't silent, so it couldn't have been fault for him passing.
No. There was enough time between the statute of limitations on the fart had passed. So Amen. We're all good. Yes. Legally, yes. No, legally the fart
Yeah,
is
in the clear.
not couple. It's cleared. It's
Yeah.
been cleared. It is clear.
It's left the room. It's aired out.
Oh yeah, so another couple of performances that I love, and I don't have the actor's name. He's in one scene, and oh wait, hold on. It is possibly Jack Grimes as the TV stage manager when they're like doing the broadcast.
Good.
Harry Shearer. Had the film been made 20 years later, 20 to like 50 years later, Harry Shearer, hands down. But he's the way that he's managing everyone. He's like, okay, Rev, let's get you to stand to the side. Let's get a really smile. Come on, you're getting everybody. Let's feel the spirit. And it's like, and it's not meant to be a show. It's an actual church service.
So, there's a church service. And because this is the beginning of the 30 days of no smoking, it's, being televised and everything. And Brooks has been told that there's not going to be any interference. They're just going to kind of be a fly on the wall. But instead, of course, it's just like a big production. But, Jack Grimes, who he reminded me of, at least physically, and I kind of loved this, was he looked like a little bit of an older Skylar, is it Gisondo? Who's in everything lately. I mean, The Righteous Gemstones being one of them, which made me so happy that it was in a church. Gisondo,
I think
yeah. But who I absolutely love. I think that he's so funny. Anytime that he's so great in Booksmart. I'm actually curious to see this movie Feast of the Seven Fishes that's on, I think, Netflix or one of the streamers. He was on Santa Clarita Diet with our homeboy Timothy Oliphant.
Timmy O.
He's so funny. And
in that Alien series, by the way, that Timothy Oliphant is going to be a part of. Yeah, that was
so excited.
Wow.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, Harry Shearer would have definitely been the TV stage manager, and I would like to have had a Skylar Gisondo kind of being his assistant or something. You blend the two of them together, and you get this. And you get Jack Grimes as the stage manager.
Great performances. More of just the blunt satire is when the Christopher Mott Society can't handle policing everyone, so they bring in the Sons of the Confederacy for backup. So you have the Nazis and the Confederates battling for power. And
ridiculous.
Yep, no holding back, and of course you have the Odie with their bullshits.
They're bullshits.
Yeah.
So funny. I really enjoyed it. The one thing that we didn't talk about, I'm sure there's plenty of things we didn't talk about, but we didn't talk about, how there's the, this group of teenage protesters, which anytime I see a group of protesters, it's almost just like okay, what's their message here? And it's like you understand where they're coming from. And I think that as people, I think, who are liberally minded, we assume that, when there's a protest like that happening, I mean, of course, there's a lot of different types of protest. Mm-hmm. There are ones that we certainly don't agree with, but, especially when it's like teenage, hippies or something, especially at that time, it's just they probably, just recently were protesting the war in Vietnam. And now it's this is the next thing that's, on their minds.
Doesn't one of them more or less say that? Or am I just...
you know what? I don't remember.
Or did I maybe think that? I don't know. But yeah, it feels like at a certain point, they're just yep, no, this is just, we have to keep doing what we do. So this is our new cause.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, and of course the Reverend takes all that to heart, and it adds to his conflict about the entire situation. And I don't know. It's, I feel like it's a movie that deserves to be revisited, and I don't know, given its proper due, especially, in respect to the late great Norman Lear.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
As people are revisiting his work.
Oh, absolutely. And this is, at least as of last week, was streaming on Prime Video. You know, when, like John said earlier, when we decided to do this film, Norman Lear was still, and we were like, you know, fingers crossed, you know, we were like, of course, you know, Norman Lear, Dick Van Dyke, you know, Mel Brooks, we're so, you know, grateful that to still have them
Absolutely
with us, mostly so that they can continue to hear their praises sung. And because of course they've, you know, lived full lives.
Sure.
Although Dick Van Dyke is still out there tap dancing on balconies. So
absolutely. And, you know, for so many people, it's unfortunate how they are only shown appreciation after they pass. And you know, Dick Van Dyke is certainly somebody who bucks that trend. Norman Lear is somebody who continuously has been getting, you know, the due credit for his work.
But not,
you have something you want to add?
Well, but not for this film. And
not for this film.
No, this film does not get mentioned. I feel like this
Correct.
film gets brushed under the carpet, and I don't think that's fair to Norman Lear or to this film or to, I mean, really any of the people in it. The good city of Greenfield, Iowa, where it was filmed.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, I have read interviews with Norman Lear where this movie does come up, and he speaks so highly of his experience making the film and also just of Iowa in general. And he, you know, really said that he loved the time that he spent there. And anytime he'd go back, I believe that they premiered the movie in Iowa, and he was happy. I love that when, you know, a movie is, you know, takes place somewhere outside of New York or LA, and they, you know, give the location the respect that it deserves by, you know, bringing in some maybe tourism money for people who are attending a premiere, something like that.
A little
So,
glitz and glamour,
cool.
A little give back to the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what I think should be done with this movie. I think it should be maybe remastered and given a re-release. I'd also love to have you know, new commentary tracks by people. I mean, hey, let me refresh this page, but Dick Van Dyke is still with us, and I'd love to hear his thoughts on it in a commentary track, and also talk to people like Rob Reiner, people who are still with us, who are from the Norman Lear universe.
I mean, Chris Elliott. What was Chris Elliott
Chris
witness to? You know, I don't know how old he would have been in 1970, but old enough to be aware of what his father did, and possibly, I don't know, spend some time on set. Who knows? Yeah, right. Any I feel like any connections that you could get to this film, like a Rob Reiner, or
I mean Bob Newhart, maybe.
Yeah,
he's still with us. He's 94. I don't know what he's been up to lately. I feel like I saw him maybe do some sort of interview, or there was some sort of video that he was part of recently.
So John, I gotta
work.
I gotta just break in here because, you know, as far as I know, everyone's still alive, but
okay. I was just about to refresh the page.
We did not once mention that the music for this film was composed by Randy Newman.
The first ever film score by Randy Newman.
Yeah. So significant because the man, you know, he would go on to write scores for so much amazing movies, not just Toy Story.
Right. Yeah, I think that also getting to hear from Randy Newman would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Randy still with us. So yeah, it is. It's a fun movie. Sorry, anything else to add to the?
No, I just think that it should be put up on a pedestal a little bit more. Maybe hear from people who were perhaps influenced by the film.
Criterion, are you listening?
And perhaps some marketing executives out there. Love to hear your thoughts on this.
Oh, yeah, that would be so cool. Yeah, no, I feel like Criterion has been so good at adding so many. Of course, I could see this being like a Shout Entertainment Blu-ray or Arrow.
Yeah, Vinegar Syndrome. There are a lot of really
Yeah.
cool, more independent distributors for physical media. And,
for a lot of
I think that-
underground, a lot of like lesser known films, but Criterion as well. I recently picked up the Criterion edition of one of my all-time favorites, La Bamba. So,
oh, cool.
Was
that recently added to Criterion?
Oh, it
collection?
sure was. Yeah. I was really excited because I didn't have like a Blu-ray of that movie, and so I'm psyched to have that. But anyway, back to Cold Turkey. So, okay.
Yeah, what would you do?
First of all, definitely for the like remastered, let's make this film more available. Let's see it. I think that when you again, if Criterion were to add it, having the Criterion channel do a satire, feature and kind of seeing this and seeing films like it connects to aside from what we've already mentioned, you could go back to Thank You for Smoking is one that connects
100%
thematically. A solid satire.
That sounds like a New Beverly Cinema double feature right there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it would be fun to just see like a whole retrospective of great satire. So I would love to see Cold Turkey involved with one of those. Also, as we were talking about it and talking about kind of the cycle, I was like, and I'm thinking about the kind of economics of the last 20 years and thinking especially, the 2008 recession and thinking about how a lot of towns like this went through similar problems using.
I mean, watch Nomadland.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so kind of, but maybe like you could revisit Eagle Rock, except that, you'd kind of be making a sequel that you'd have to make not as a sequel, but as like a sequel, like almost like an Evil Dead 2, where it's a sequel, but also a remake. Because so many people hadn't seen the first one. So, and yeah, like we were talking about before, like what else could you do? And I thought about that. And like my top 3 were the internet. So then you'd call it off the grid, and where it's just like, okay, the people in this town are not going to be able to leave it, and they have to go internet free. I was also like, what else could work? Gasoline would be an interesting one.
Well, that'd be an interesting one for sure. Starring Ed Begley Jr. And it's like all the people who are big advocates for electric vehicles.
Right.
Not to get a little too blue on here, but you could also do one called No Nut November, about a town that has to ban pornography or, any type of illicit behavior unless it's for the intention of creating a baby.
That's dystopic, I think. The other one, and the other one I had, now this would be like kind of dark, but like, what about a town that has to give up antidepressants? Like pharmaceutical, or like just pharmaceuticals.
That's like Battlefield Earth level Scientology propaganda, since they're all anti, psychotherapy.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I was thinking of
antidepressants.
I was thinking of it more in like the corporate vein of like, just like, what are those big industries that are like, oh, they're toxic and that, and they're awful, but they're so powerful. And yeah, that's where it was like the oil, the internet, less about the companies and more about just like the internet itself. And like what would happen if this town gave up the internet, and like what would be the sides of that? Like not just a few days without social media and people are happier, but also like, oh shit, this happened and we didn't know.
Yeah, I think that the dangers of doing something like Gasoline would be that after the end of the month, Well, it is tricky because it's not something that people have like a chemical dependency on in the
Right.
same way where you see the effects of it where they have to like change their behaviors. Whereas something like the internet would have that type of effect.
Right.
People start reading books, physical books.
And
not
I
ebooks.
feel like I also feel like that kind of I think that you could work in the antidepressant thing with that because you might have people who are like maybe they don't need their antidepressants anymore. Or they're like,
yeah,
I
that one you're walking on the razor's edge.
yeah,
for sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to because it feels like that industry, the pharmaceutical industry. Like I would love to see a film of this style.
Right.
I'd love to, like they need to be taken down by someone like not Michael Moore in a documentary.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what's so challenging about the pharmaceutical industry is that for some people they rely on
Right, some people
the
legitimately
pharmaceuticals.
Right, whereas
Yeah.
nobody legitimately
Otherwise,
needs,
it'd be like, yeah,
nobody legitimately needs cigarettes. So right, and I guess that's where the internet could
right.
come into play. Yeah, I mean there would definitely be some technicalities to work out, especially because like we've become so dependent on it, and I mean maybe
The world runs on it.
yeah, it's become a like human right to have internet access. So
Oh yeah,
it's kind of like, have we gone too far? Do you set it in the past? So there's that idea, and like the idea of kind of like using something else, and then also this would make a fun musical. And
it would make a fun musical.
Musical
That's
theater is a place where absurdity is the norm. So
yeah,
like all of the most absurd things about this, like imagine an Odie song where she's just calling everything a bullshit, and it's a whole musical number. That's a bullshit. You're a bullshit.
Well,
I'm a bullshit. She's a bullshit. He's a bullshit.
Right, and clearly
Dancing
as we've seen
cigarettes.
from like as we've seen from Mel Brooks and like the producers,
Yeah.
or from John Waters and Hairspray. It's
Book
like
of
these
Mormon.
people who are, Book of Mormon. People were making these satirical. Book of Mormon started out as it's just a musical, but for the others, they started out as movies going on to musicals, and it works so flawlessly that of course they then make the producers, the movie, the musical, the movie. It's like the movie
bombs.
based on the musical, based on the movie. Right, it doesn't matter. It still existed, but it's like there's some desire to continue on these.
Well, and
these legacies
Hairspray,
here.
the movie musical based on the musical based on the movie, and I thought Hairspray, the musical, the film, I thought was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well regarded. People generally very, very much like it. A lot of people don't realize that there even was the original film Hairspray, the original John Waters.
Well, and now you're going to have Mean Girls.
Correct. And I'm really excited about it. It looks so good. And like, I trust the people behind it, and the behind the scenes stuff I've seen from it, I think looks great. Yeah, that's coming soon.
Yeah. I mean, it's been almost 20 years since the original Mean Girls, which is bizarre to say.
Wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah.
So wild.
So, no, I like the idea of a musical. I think that'd be a lot of fun. If you have ideas, our dear listeners, on what you would do with cold turkey, please email us ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com. Check out the links in our episode description for a link tree. You can buy some cool merch, any last minute holiday things. We've got some fun stuff for you. And we'd just love to hear from you. Dan, would you like to let everyone know what we're doing on our Kansas episode?
On our Kansas episode, of course, when it's Kansas, there's no place like home. We're doing Wizard of Oz, 1939, Victor Fleming, starring Judy Garland, Burt Lahr.
You know it.
Yeah,
we
so
don't
Ray
have to tell you
Bolger.
about
Yeah,
it.
it's the Wizard of Oz. You've heard of it. You're familiar with it. And
But if we're covering movies from states and we get to Kansas, what else are we really going to cover?
The Matt Dillon
In
film?
Cold Blood.
Oh, In Cold
Sure.
Blood?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, but The Wizard of Oz. It's going to be great to get back to early cinema and get to talk a little bit about that. I don't think that we're going to be saying anything groundbreaking, but you never know.
Well, also it's a podcast about prequels and sequels and remakes and reboots and how do you reimagine something
and what a legacy.
Talk about a deep well that has been gone to so many times is The Wizard of Oz. So I'm really curious to see what we can come up with here. I've already been asking, just thinking about it and say, where is the story that has not been told in The Wizard of Oz? So looking forward to talking about that.
We'll talk about that on our next episode.
That we shall.
And Dan, as you are flying your helicopter full of cigarettes to Eagle Rock, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.